Speaking of School Henderson, one team we haven't mentioned yet,
Team Deadlift.
Team Deadlift, made up of G League Ignite players, which Scoot Henderson hails from. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not looking forward to this one.
They're gonna get washed.
They're gonna get washed. They've been horrible all season in the G League, and now they have to come up and play NBA players. Probably one of the best rising stars crops in the last few years. Mm-hmm. These last two classes have been insane, and this team doesn't have shooting. They have no point guard.
You're not a Mac McClung guy, Cam? He run the one.
I'm sorry. It's not gonna go well. I hope they prove me wrong. I hope they come out competitive, but I just don't see it. I think this is the type of things I hope the NBA stops doing. Because while, yes, it's a good idea on paper, it kind of bogs the night down. Because now you have, instead of doing less games, you have more games, and this team is just going to get blown out. And it's going to be like 30 minutes of everybody's time just wasted.
Yeah.
I almost wish they would just kind of split them apart, so it's more even. Because I feel like when you just do all G League guys, it's like, maybe they will surprise us and we'll be talking about them like, That's what
I was going to say. Like, more likely than not, they're going to get run off the court and probably play the least amount of games, because I know that they do like a round robin type of thing. But if they did end up coming out and surprising everybody and somehow finish up taking down all three of these teams, how much do you think, even though it's an all-star format, could that do for somebody like Matas Buzelis or Ron Holland if they come out here and show that they can take a one-on-one matchup? Maybe they get to the championship and it's Tyler Smith matched up with a Jalen Duren, and he just goes out there and either dominates him around the rim or blocks his shot. Like, do you think that could impact draft stock at all, even though it's in kind of this all-star, not really trying format? Yeah,
I think playing good anywhere helps, like, especially because this is another one of the events where the NBA scouts will be there. Like,
oh yeah,
I know some of the point of G League Ignite is to get them in front of the NBA scouts and get them NBA, but when they're not doing so well, NBA teams kind of stop showing up as frequently. So this is almost a reintroduction for the players, which is a good opportunity. But, however, it's always going to be taken with a grain of salt because the guys they're playing against are trying not to get hurt. Like, they're just out there having fun, trying to get a couple highlights, trying not to get hurt. And then on top of that, the flip side is, if you do bad in front of a bunch of guys who aren't really trying, you might plummet. Like, it might not go as well as you hoped. So it's definitely a risk. I think they should do a better job protecting these guys from what could be a disaster overnight.
I mean, I remember last year, too, because I was big on the Scoot Henderson train coming into that draft. He played, and I don't think he really had a good outing at this event. I don't want to say it was why he fell to third, like in a lot of people's eyes, because Brandon Miller was just on a tear at Alabama. But I feel like around this time, because it was also when March Madness was starting to heat, people weren't as sold on him being the lock at number 2 as they were when him and Wemby played in October. But even if they do bad, I mean, at the end of the day, they still have to compete with the guys in their class. So I don't think it'll hurt them too much, but hey, we'll see.
First one that jumps out to me is I feel like Team Jalen is pretty stacked. You've got 3 of the best bigs in this entire Rising Stars class with Chet, Walker, and Derek Lively all on the same roster. Could be a little bit unbalanced, but in an all-star game format, if guys are missing shots, they're clearly going to have the rebound advantage. And, I feel like defensively, Rising Stars is not a defensive game, so it might not come into play as much, but they're at least going to put a hand up. It might impact some things. And I feel like on the wing with Jordan Hawkins and Ben Mathurin, Shaedon Sharpe is maybe the most athletic player in this entire Rising Stars class. They're going to have a lot of highlights on that team.
Shaedon Sharpe is hurt, if I'm not mistaken, though.
I want to
say he's being replaced.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, he's being replaced by Jeremy Sohan.
Okay, so you replace one athlete with another. I mean, that's a great addition then. I don't know how much he'll, handle the ball over like Jalen Williams and Ben Mathurin, but
hopefully none.
You know what I think is crazy underrated, though? Like, I know it's just the Rising Stars game, but Jalen Williams and Holmgren, that Thunder team, they have so much chemistry. And I know those two specifically are going to have fun together on that court. So right now, just looking at it, I think they're my favorite because I think Jalen Williams too. Like Shai Gilgeous gets all the talk because he's a superstar on that team, but Jalen Williams, I think he's going to be a great second option right next to him. You've also got Holmgren. You could argue he might even be the second option too, but Williams and Holmgren, they are both going to be problems going forward.
I like Team Jalen, but I think you guys may have missed something. There's no point guard. On the entire roster, they have no one to lead the show, and I think Jalen Williams is probably going to be kind of given those duties. Maybe Jordan Hawkins. I know he's played it a little bit for the Pelicans, but at the end of the day, those two guys, they like to shoot a lot. I'm more leaning towards Team Powell. I like Team Tamika's roster the best, but it's a couple guys on there I don't know how serious they're going to take this game. I feel like Paolo, he has the actual playoffs to look forward to, so I think he'll be out there kind of chilling a little bit. I really like Team Powell. They have a little bit of everything. They have Kason Ross to run the point. They have defense and Koulibaly and Hawkes Jr. They got shooting, Podmosky, Jabari Smith, and then they have the best rookie, best young player. I think best probably overall player in the Rising Stars game this year, Victor Wembanyama. So I would definitely go with Team Powell. Yeah,
and Wemby and Koulibaly also played together with Metropolitans '92 in that program as well. So that's kind of a fun little reunion for them. But somebody that I think might fly under the radar a little bit is Keontae George. That's a name I feel like could potentially, in an all-star format with how offensive focused his game is, could be somebody that randomly pops off and almost makes a name for himself among these really highly touted young players.
Yeah.
I think if he starts making a couple shots, it can turn into his kind of night really fast. I feel like Jaden Ivey, though, I think he has something to prove, especially.
And he's been playing good recently.
On a tear, yeah.
I think this is kind of prime for him to, I don't know if it'll go the way he wants it to, but I see at least 20 shots for Jaden Ivey.
Can we just talk about the athleticism on Team Tamika, though? Because they've got Keontae George. People don't really talk about his athleticism, but he can get up there. Henderson, Ivy, that's like what they're known for. Then you have Banchero, who's just a beast. Duran, he's also a defensive beast. Like, this team, looking at it, I'd probably expect the most highlight plays from them. I know the other team, Team Powell, Team Jalen, Team Powell has Wembanyama, but I think this is probably the team I'm most excited to watch, just in kind of a laid-back kind of way.
I feel like they're going to get out and run with like Jalen Duran can run the floor, obviously, but with Scoot and Ivy, some of the fastest guards in the league right now, they're going to be pushing the pace. You'll have guys trailing like Keegan Murray who can spot up. So I feel like it's going to be a pretty entertaining night. I know the game's starting at around 8 p.m. our time here in Nebraska, but should be a good All-Star Friday night, I feel like.
Yes. Okay, so now we talked about the guys who made the team. Let's talk about some of the guys who were left off. So you have notably guys such as Ashore Thompson, Amin Thompson, Peyton Watson, Cam Whitmore. They're nowhere to be found on any of the rosters this year. While you have guys who have struggled more or less, like Scoot, and guys who are having good years, but just are a little overall, like Dyson Daniels. How do you feel? Who do you guys feel got left out?
I mean, I'm honestly surprised, especially with the, well, he's not even on your list, but, kind of a sleeper that I had because, he was on the Nuggets. He played in the finals, had a lot of big minutes, but I'm honestly surprised Christian Brown didn't get put in there, especially with kind of the popularity that he has, because I feel like they kind of factor that in too. He's a guy I would have loved to see participate in this and just get a little more recognition because I feel like people have been quiet, but I feel like he's going to be that guy who, once the playoffs come around, he'll remind people, like, I'm here. But to your point, Amin Thompson, the Thompson twins, and Cam Whitmore, obviously you would love to see them play. But I think a big part of them, especially with Amin and Cam, is like they had a smaller sample size. And I think when they cook this up, they don't really take into account the amount of games played. And right now, they're just at that point where I think the Rockets, too, for Amin and Cam, it's like they're they have a lot of vets, and now they're slowly getting into that part of the season where they're allowing their younger guys to get a little bit more freedom. Like even Jalen Green, part of that's because Fred VanVleet's been hurt, but we're seeing him start to really explode now. But I would have loved to see all those guys, and I think they're deserving, but it's just an unfortunate part of they've been hurt or they've been out of the rotation. So
yeah, and I feel like one guy that I knew for sure, regardless of how up and down his season's been, was going to be on these rosters with Scoot Henderson. There's no way that the NBA could allow a guy that hyped up who was at one point in the draft process was getting consideration as the number one pick over Victor Wembanyama. There's no way you could leave him off the Rising Stars game as, the PR for the NBA. But someone that, not just because I'm a Cavs fan, but that I would have liked to see make it into this format is Amani Bates for the Cavs G League team. There are a couple G Leaguers that aren't from G League Ignite on Team Detlef with Oscar Sheway, Alondis Williams, and Mac McClung. Amani Bates has been averaging almost 30 points a game in the G League, and I feel like it would have been awesome to see him compared to some of these other wings like Ben Matherin, just going down the list, Brandon Miller, Pajemski, Jabari Smith. Like, he's been amazing in the G League, hasn't gotten a lot of run in the NBA so far, but I feel like with his offensive firepower and just the way he can shoot, it would have been really entertaining if he went on a heater on All-Star Friday night. But
yeah, I agree. I think you might have stumbled on to something there. While I understand you really want to push the G League at night, I feel like, especially in years like this where it's not as good as it's been in previous years, there's not really star power there. I feel like maybe instead having a team full of G League guys who haven't really necessarily got their chance to break through yet, allowing them a shot at some of the top young players, going against some of their teammates maybe that are just ahead of them because they got picked higher, would maybe be more entertaining because I think that team for sure would play harder. Mm-hmm. And they don't have as much to lose if they don't play good because the teams already know if it's bad, they already know. So
right.
I feel like that might be an interesting thing for the NBA to look at going forward.